All right, welcome everyone. My name is James Wanamaker. I am the chair of the New Dentist Committee for NSDA. We'd like to welcome you to our second webinar dental success series for new dentists. This one is on starting out in dentistry. There's so many different pathways to practice. You could be an associate, an owner, a partner. You could work in a non-for-profit. Our hope is that this webinar will help give you some insight on these paths today and help set you up for success to excel in your current path, or if you're looking to make a change from one path to the other. I'd like to welcome our four speakers. First up, we have Kendra Zappia Dds. Dr. Zappia has been in private practice in Albany, New York for 10 years and also teaches in the dental hygiene department in the Hudson Valley Community College. Dr. Zappia has been involved with the New Dentist Committee at the local, state, and national levels. She is passionate about helping other dentists become successful and sharing the lessons she learned along the way. And then also we have Greg Zappia. He is an attorney at O'Connell and Aronowitz. Greg practices civil litigation and employment law, representing employers and employees in employment discrimination and labor law matters at O'Connell and Aronowitz. He is a current member of the New York State Bar Association. Next up, we have Rob Malandrucolo. Rob is the VP of Dental Financing at Bank of America. He provides services to dental clients seeking financing for healthcare projects, business endeavors throughout the state of New York. This includes first practices, additional locations, remodels, expansion, equipment, refinancing debt, commercial real estate purchases. Rob has over 17 years in the dental industry, working previously with the two largest dental companies in the market, and has helped over 450 dental clients with practice ownership and expansion. And last, we have Susan Albert Dmd. Dr. Albert enjoyed being a private practitioner for 11 years. Upon the sale of her practice, she continued her career by providing dental care to underserved populations as the dental care director at a federally qualified health center. Under her tenure, the clinics expanded and addressed real dental needs in the community, including elder care, special needs care, and the ER division. Dr. Eber is unwavering in her desire to protect private practice dentistry. She is a vocal advocate for having a strong association to lead the dental profession through the issues it's facing today. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers for being here, and I will turn it over to you to start our discussion.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am Kendra Zappia. I am going to talk to you a little bit about my journey along the way and all of the mistakes that I've made that cost a lot of time, stress, and money. So hopefully you don't make those mistakes. But also to show that I made every mistake that there probably was, and I'm still here to tell about it with a great practice that I'm very proud of with my sister. So I'm thankful for that. But I started out as an associate at a practice that I intended on purchasing and becoming a partner with this gentleman. And I thought that was going to be it for the rest of my career, and I was so thankful for that. But it turned out he was not quite the person that I thought he was. Our ethics just didn't match up, so I left and was heartbroken. I was an associate at a couple other practices for a little bit. I worked in some nursing homes, and as James said, I taught at our local hygiene program. But along the way, I figured that I wanted to be in charge of myself and how I wanted to treat my patients and treat my office team. So I started looking for a practice, which was a big chore. I couldn't figure out how to find a practice, if it was the right fit. So that's where ADAPT sounds like it's a great fit to help you. And I know Dr. Ebert will talk about that. But I looked on our district websites. I definitely knew I wanted a fee-for-service practice. I did not want to have to deal with any insurance. So finding that is finding a needle in a haystack, but I eventually found one, and it was not the practice of my dreams. It was open 3 days a week. Some of the machines, the instruments, the pan machine didn't work. Found that out the first day after I purchased the practice. A lot of the equipment didn't work. A lot of the employees didn't work. So that was a fun lesson to learn after I'd paid all this money. But I did make a good decision in using a great attorney. So that was great. But I did not use a great accountant. I used my parents' accountant. I asked him, do you represent dentists? And he said, yeah, I have dental clients, but he did not understand dental accounting. And so it's so important to make sure you have the right people in place, and spending that extra money on an attorney, on an accountant, it will pay off in the long run. So you want to make sure you've got good people on your side there. Same thing, using a great lending company. I used Bank of America, and I had a wonderful experience with them, and I use them for several other things. I use them for my daily banking, and I've just had great experience, and I can't say enough good things about them. But purchased the practice. It was very run down, and my sister and I worked together, and we just built a brand new, beautiful office. It's double the size, and it's everything that we want it to be. But we were cleaning some things out, and she held up this sign and said, "We're throwing this away." And I was like, no, wait. On the back of it, it was from Home Goods, and I paid $12.99 for it. And I really had to think about spending $12.99 on that sign to hang into my office, because I did not have that money. And Greg will tell you too, starting out, I really didn't bring many paychecks home. So it was tough, but a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And slowly we started to grow. And I did not know how to run a business. I didn't know where to turn to. Will probably make Rob cringe, but I thought I was doing well if my bank account was going up, and I wasn't doing well if it was going down. But I had no way to kind of check myself and what was really happening in real time. So we finally hired an excellent accountant. He empowered me with knowledge and taught me how to run my business. And there isn't a thing that I don't know how to do at the office, accounting wise or position wise. And that has been so important for us, not having to depend on other people, but to know how to do it yourself. So you want to have somebody that can evaluate a practice if you do want to purchase it, who can evaluate the contract, and just make sure that you're getting what you're paying for. You want to have a great lender in place too. Like I said, Bank of America helped me out a lot. They knew the questions to ask me to make sure that I would be successful, and they held my hand along the way and made me accountable. So once we built the practice up, which took a lot of time and just building relationships and trust with patients and team members, we were able to build our dream office, but it took a good 12 years to do that. And then we used Bank of America again to finance that. So that was a great choice. But some other insurance or other mistakes I made when I bought that office, they were not HIPAA or OSHA compliant. The dentist at the time told me that I could just use his disability insurance for the employees. That was not true. I got fined a lot of money, and my great attorney helped me negotiate that fine down. But I just didn't know where to turn to for all this information. And NSDA has great resources in helping you figure out what to do if you're an associate, what to do if you're buying a practice, becoming a partner. So the amount of information they have is just invaluable. So that's that.
Yeah, so as part of mine, I'm piggybacking off of what Dr. Zappia had mentioned, that, and we didn't rehearse this beforehand, but it's true. I think my advice to most of my clients is practical as opposed to legal, is making sure you do have that team in place. Right from the first meeting I have with clients that are in a similar situation, whether it's their first employment contract, becoming an associate in a practice, or looking to purchase a practice and transitioning into whether it's a partnership or buying the practice themselves, is making sure that team is in place. And I know Kendra hit on it multiple times, but it's true. You can have a deal with one attorney that's practiced in some other field, a personal injury attorney that doesn't know the ins and outs of a dental transition, and those are the deals that are very difficult either to get off the ground or get to the closing table. So it's important to have that person in place. Having the financial team in place as well. This is stuff that you don't learn in law school, you don't learn in dental school. So it's very important to have those experts, so to speak, in your corner to ensure that you understand what's going on. There's just so many nuances, whether you're buying a house or whether you're buying a practice, that you really don't know what you don't know. And oftentimes, unfortunately, I could give you multiple horror stories about what's gone wrong when the proper documents weren't set up. It's much more difficult getting you out of a situation than it is getting you into the right situation from the start. So it's imperative. I know attorneys tend to be the rain on everybody's parade and give you some doomsday scenarios, but that's fine, because I like the idea that we're setting you up for success as opposed to pulling you out of that failure that we may have dug a hole for in the very beginning. But yeah, so there's a myriad of stories I could share about what not to do, but some things that you want to think about when you're in this position. Again, same thing, putting that team in place, a good accountant, a good legal team, a good bank that understands it. There's a lot of those folks that have maybe a general understanding, but don't know the intricate details of a dental transition or a dental contract. And with those contracts, there's some terms that you're going to encounter that you may want to think about right now. And I don't want to just give you legalese on a Tuesday evening at 7:15 when it's already been a long day and it's the first beautiful day outside that we've had in about 6 months in New York. But regardless, think about the restrictive covenants and whether that's within an employment contract or whether that is something that's within your purchase agreement with the transition. There's going to be certain restrictions that you, the employer and the seller, are going to be agreeing to as far as where you can practice after the employment ends or after the purchase agreement with the seller ends. So you're going to want to make sure that you're aware of what type of restrictions are in place. Second of all, there's things that you need to think about as far as compensation wise. I mean, it's a big thing. If you're an associate going into a practice, there's multiple different ways to calculate compensation, but you need to really figure out at the outset. When I first started practicing in this realm 15, 20 years ago, believe it or not, there was a trend that most of the time it was production. It was based upon production. And now there's a swing towards most of the time it's going to be a percentage of collections. And now we're actually seeing there's a trend, depending upon how senior you are in the industry, to actually being paid a percentage of gross revenues of the actual company. So there's a lot of different things you need to think about. I hear it time and time again from clients about what you envisioned when you were in dental school, and it's maybe not the same picture once you got out of dental school of what it's going to be like. There's a couple of courses you take in grad school to prepare you for the business side of it, but it's going to leave you a little bit left to be desired when you're actually running your own business or you're negotiating your own contract. So on that note, I'm going to switch it on over to our next speaker, but I appreciate the time. I know we have a question and answer session at the end, but I believe Grazia has my contact information, and our firm does a very good job of offering up free consultations for anybody that has questions related to the topic we're discussing tonight. I welcome it. I enjoy talking to new dentists, experienced dentists, whatever the case may be in these types of situations. I enjoy doing it. That's one of the reasons why I got into the business in the first place. So I appreciate the time. Thanks for attending tonight, and I look forward to meeting you all soon.
So I think it's my turn. So this is Rob. I'm from Bank of America Practice Solutions, which is the healthcare division of Bank of America. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with Bank of America, but maybe some of you aren't familiar with Practice Solutions. So the Practice Solutions division is separated in medical, dental, and veterinarian. So I manage the dental sector in the New York marketplace. So what that means is I'm a specific division of a bank that tailors to the needs of dentists. And like Dr. Zappia was saying, we have a different set of products that are available to doctors, whether you're looking for your first location to start or potentially to buy or even down the road expand and continue to build your business. No matter if you're just in residency or potentially associating. And if you're on this Zoom, I would assume that you have interest in practice ownership. And it's never too early to have your personal financial situation looked at. That will help you long-term or short-term, just to make sure that you're able to meet the goals that you create for yourself. The best way to do that is through one of two means. One is to connect with a dental-specific lender like myself, or two, potentially a CPA that specializes in healthcare. The reason being is there are certain parameters that all banks look for if you're looking to finance the opportunity of practice ownership. So I'm going to go through those parameters, and I'll be available later to answer questions, or even offline if you have something specific you want to present or to discuss. So the first and probably most important parameter that a bank looks at is your credit score. So what banks look for when you're looking to assume practice ownership and you're applying is they look for a minimum credit score of 700. The credit score is actually a reflection of your level of responsibility to a bank. So obviously the higher your credit score, the better it is, or the better it looks to a bank when you're applying, whether it be for practice debt, a future practice ownership, or even a home. So if you don't know your credit score today, I would suggest that you actually look into that. When you look at your credit score, just to get the actual score itself, you're actually doing what is called a soft pull. So a soft pull will not affect your credit score, just to figure out what you're actually at. A hard pull is when you're actually applying for something. That does affect your credit score. So anytime you apply for financing, whether it be for practice debt or even a credit card, you do impact your credit score. But just to check it, it does not. So if you have an opportunity, you could probably check your credit score. A lot of times, the credit card companies now would just offer that up as information, so you could contact them directly, or you could use one of the 3 credit bureaus to check your score directly from them. But a minimum credit score that a bank will look for is 700. So before applying, you want to make sure that your score is at least at that point. Another thing a bank looks for, depending on the size of transaction, is we look that you have some money saved. So healthcare-specific lenders look to finance the actual transaction 100%, but they still want to make sure that you have some money saved for a rainy day fund. And the best rule of thumb that you could use when you're thinking about applying is what is the size of transaction that you may be looking at. If you do not know that, just from on an average in a New York state, the average practice startup is around 4 to 450, and the average practice acquisition is around 450 to 5. So when you're looking at 10%, we want to make sure that you have liquidity in 10%, and that could be, so in New York State, an average would be that 45,000 to 50. If you're associating for a year, we probably would not expect you to have that size amount, but when we talk about liquidity and we talk about that 10% rule, we're including things like checking, savings, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, anything that could be made liquid. But we do not count retirement. Retirement is counted as an asset, but it doesn't count as liquidity. So, so you could have money in the market in a brokerage account, and that would count as liquidity if you're investing today, which I think a lot of people are these days. But there is a factor of time that comes into play. So if you've only been associating for a year, like I said, you wouldn't be expected to have 50,000, but they would expect you to have all the other parameters that we're looking for, like credit score, income, your monthly bills are within reason compared to your income. They're going to make sure that those are in place. But if you do come to the table with 10% availability and liquidity, that will make you a stronger candidate to get an approval. Another thing that we do look for, and we do approve doctors, specialists, before they leave their residency program. We use specific accounting from data that we collect over the years to know what potential production is going to be done when you start an office. When you acquire an office, there's a little bit more to it. We want to see your level of production and make sure that it fits the practice that you're looking to acquire. But when we talk about income, we want to make sure that your income is over 125,000 usually if you're looking to start a practice, and that your monthly debt obligations fit your level of income. So one of the parameters that we look at is character. So a part or something that plays deep into the character of a person that's applying is, are they living within their means? Are they living on their credit cards, which is a negative? You want to come to, or when you apply, you want to make sure that your revolving debt, your credit card debt is fairly low within reason. I try to be as specific as possible. A good place for you to be, if you've been associating a year or two, is to have $1,000 or $2,000, maybe $3,000 of credit card debt when you're applying, and to have in the form of liquidity, $35,000, $40,000, potentially $1,000 in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, checking, savings. That will put you in a very good place for a bank. So when we talk about character and what the bank looks for, we look at your monthly debt and your monthly expenses. So I think a lot of the times the fear is that you have so much student debt that you won't be able to start or acquire a practice. The truth of the matter is we look at your month obligation with that student debt. So I think in New York, the average potentially is, 400,000 and up, depending on what school you went to. Your monthly payment to that is what we're concerned about. If we add another payment from a practice startup or a practice acquisition, will the income of the future office be able to support that debt plus all your personal and professional debts monthly? So whenever you prepare for practice ownership, you want to make sure that those 4 or 5 parameters are in place before you apply with a healthcare lender. The best way to do that and to create a goal for yourself is to actually, you could actually have your financials reviewed on an application without submitting it formally, and you could set up some goals for yourself to meet before you actually assume or go down the path of practice ownership. So whenever you go down that path, and I think we've all kind of touched on it, there's the importance of working with dental specific people around you, from healthcare attorneys to CPAs. And I think having a mentor like Dr. Zappia is only going to benefit you, because you could always learn from the people that have taken that journey before you. I think that that it's important to identify a potential mentor that could be useful, and you could share and ask questions to kind of make sure that you're on the right path and you avoid potential pitfalls. But one of the other items I wanted to talk to today is about the market today. I think there is fear, and there, obviously within, with good reason, about everything that's going on within the world today. And I hope everyone and their families are safe. But there is also opportunity out in the marketplace. And it may sound biased because I'm from a bank, but we've seen doctors that are starting up get amazing opportunities within leases, and being able to assume locations that they maybe never would have been able to hadn't there been some more locations available to them. And we've seen it in the commercial space, which is the space that you operate in for the most part. There's been more vacancies. Retailers and businesses have been forced to either go online or unfortunately haven't survived the pandemic, but it has given some of our healthcare professionals some opportunities in amazing locations. And when you think about practice ownership, the location is probably one of the 2 or 3 most important decisions you're going to make, because that practice ownership or that location in that practice ownership is going to define not only the demographics of the patients that you're going to see, the type of practice you could potentially have, and the future of that practice and the growth. So we see it, picking the right location, making sure you're surrounded by professionals that understand your industry, and making sure that you use a dental specific lender because the structures of the loans are in your favor, is probably 3 of the most important decisions you can make moving forward. But I want to make sure that, when I leave this, that you all understand we're free resources for you today. And NSDA does a great job of allowing us to speak and kind of give some insight on the market and what we've all been through as in our different prospective careers. And you should take advantage of those free resources available to you. So, and thank you for having me, if I didn't say it before.
Okay, it looks like I'm up. So first of all, I want to echo everybody's statements. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to communicate with you guys. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a different way to find just the right practice or associateship for those of you who are ready to take that next step. I'd like to say just a little bit about what brought me here, because I'm a general dentist and my career path has been kind of crazy, actually. I started my own practice from scratch after I did a GPR, and I was able to practice there for a little over a decade before I encountered some health problems. I unfortunately had to sell my practice, and that was very, very difficult for me to do, but life happens. But I wasn't ready to give up on dentistry because I love this profession and I love what the opportunities that are available. So I ended up going into a public health educational setting as the dental director of a federally qualified health center. We were also the extramural rotation site for the university that was close by. So I was able to work with senior dental students, which was absolutely an amazing time for me. I also was very involved in the Dental Association leadership. I was a trustee for my state, and I did quite a bit of lobbying at both the state and the national level during that time. So because of all of those experiences, I got a real understanding for the challenges that not only I faced during my career, but the challenges that our dentists are facing as they launch their careers. So now I work for the American Dental Association Business Innovations Group, and we've created a new way for you to find your ideal practice situation. And we've recently launched nationwide the service that's called ADA Practice Transitions. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what that service is and how we can help you. ADA Practice Transitions is a digital matching service that brings together associates and buyers with practice owners who want to either hire or sell. And it's kind of funny because we've been equated to Match.com for dentists, but I have to challenge that because we're not just looking for a practice for you. We're looking for just the right one that's really going to fit your needs and help you to avoid some of those pitfalls that we've already heard about this evening. We do this because we match you not just on your location or finances, which of course come into play, but we place a real emphasis on compatible approaches to the way you treat your patients, your staff, and your community. So think about that for just a second, because when the patients and the staff experience continuity of care between the providers, the patients and staff are happy, right? So when the patients and staff are happy, they're going to perform well and the patients are going to pay. So when the staff performs well and the patients pay, the doctors are happy. And guess what? Because it's all about the doctor, as we know, when the doctor is happy, everybody is going to win. So how do we make the magic happen? It begins with, in our case, just really filling out a comprehensive online profile. And that might not sound like much. And when you first jump on, it's not going to seem like much because it's the information that you would expect. But suddenly it turns the corner because we start getting more interesting. We start collecting the information that you're going to need to find just that right practice that fits your unique goals and needs. We have a number of questions that are going to relate directly to how you choose to practice dentistry, including your referral patterns, how you interact with staff, some of the policies that you want to be in place in the office, and really to help you refine your ultimate goals. The questions also direct you to kind of start thinking about what your philosophy of care is. And that's what's going to give the patients and the staff the confidence that the practice is going to be in good hands. The profile is designed to take some time and thought. We know how important this is to a successful outcome, and that's why we put so much effort into getting it just right. Because after all, we want our dentists to really consider their own goals, not what they think someone else wants to hear. So think about that just for a moment in the context of, let's say, interviewing for a job. How likely is it that you as the applicant are going to present yourselves in a way that you think the hiring doctor wants you to be? Now, you're not intentionally misrepresenting yourself or anything, of course, but there's always the tendency to try to fit yourself into somebody else's mold. Our profile takes the approach that we want you to show off exactly who you are and exactly what you want. And then it's our job to go find the practices that fit your needs. This really allows that level of transparency throughout the process that's going to lead to less confusion and more success long term, because everybody has the opportunity to say exactly what their goals and expectations are for the future. So what happens after that profile has been filled out? Well, then you get access to a wealth of information, both from your advisor and through the Get Ready section of the platform. And based on your profile, your advisor is going to point you towards the information that you need when you need it. For instance, if the buyer has not yet secured financing, we're going to give you the resources that you need so that you're ready to go talk to the banks, and preferably sooner rather than later. We're also going to give you some checklists and some tips for evaluating that practice so you don't end up buying a lemon, which it sounds like somebody else on this call had that experience. So we can talk you through and give you those tips and tricks that you need in order to make sure that you're getting what you need. And those are just a couple of the examples that we have. I love our associate contracting toolkit, because you want to talk about everything associate contract related, it's in that toolkit. The idea there is that the dentists are going to sit down, they're going to talk through all the different things that could potentially go into that, including benefits and compensation agreements and non-compete clauses. And are you going to give me a signing bonus? Are you going to give me a relocation bonus? Are you going to help me get to your area? Everything. The two doctors sit down, they talk it out, they fill in all the blanks, and then what do? They take it to their respective attorneys for evaluation so that that contract is something that both parties are perfectly comfortable with from the start. So why do we do everything this way? We want to give our dentists back control. We want to demystify the transition experience. Everyone wins when both docs are fully engaged. And this goes back to, if you can discuss everything up front with that doctor. And when I think about this, I think about that employment contracting toolkit, because if you think that two dentists can sit down across the table from each other and go through all of these things on paper, face to face, speaking to each other as professionals, do you think maybe they're going to have a really good shot at being able to work together? Do you think they're going to have the opportunity to bounce ideas off of each other and feel respected as professionals, they are going to have a successful long-term relationship, and they're going to be able to troubleshoot problems as they come up. So what's the final point in this transition journey? You know, after the contracts have been signed, we recognize that the transition is so much more than signing the contracts. We know that a dentist who's retiring needs to consider life after dentistry. We know that a dentist who's hiring a new associate needs to understand how to integrate that associate into the office systems. And we know that a dentist who just purchased a practice needs to know how to keep the patients coming back for more. So we're going to provide you the information that you need to ensure long-term success. So ultimately, if you're looking at making a change, or even if you're looking at your first dental position, follow a couple of steps. First, evaluate your current situation and clearly understand why you're looking to make a change. Write it down. Once you've identified what it is that you're missing right now, take that step back. You know, when you graduate from dental school, don't you look at every option that's available to you? Don't you carefully consider all those things? Why wouldn't you do that every single time you're looking to make a change? It might be time for you to go back and pursue a specialty program. Maybe you want to get into the military or academia. Maybe you want to get into public health as a dental director. It was a lot of fun, actually. So it's not just a matter of, do you want to be an associate or do you want to be an owner? So take a few minutes, just examine all of the options that this profession has to offer. Then, once you kind of know what you're looking for, don't be afraid to take the plunge, just go find it. The ADA and the New York State Dental Association have tons of resources at their disposal that can walk you through heading down almost any path in your career. But if you are looking for an associate position or some kind of practice purchase opportunity, I always say the first thing you do, if it's possible, is go to your local and state dental society events and network. Maybe find a great mentor there. Every time I've been to a dental society meeting, dentists are so open and they want to guide you. They love to talk about themselves, let's face it. And then if that doesn't work for you, or even if that's the path you want to go down, I still suggest that you check us out. ADA Practice Transitions. We can help you to find just that right position, and we can help you to find the resources that you need. In fact, you don't have to find them. We'll hand them to you on a silver platter. So give us a try, adapracticetransitions.com, and see if we can help you find that practice of your dreams. And I believe that this is now your chance to ask us all of your burning questions. We're here to help. So I'm going to hand this off.
There's actually one, I don't know if you've seen it, Greg, it's for you in the chat. It's asking if their employer has recently given a non-compete timeframe for 5 years. That doesn't seem reasonable to her. And what is the normal timeframe for New York State for non-solicits? I also think it's unreasonable that it has a standalone document not attached to any associate agreement. She's just wondering if this is kind of anything you can offer.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things in that. Obviously, I don't know the entire situation. I don't know the entire contract, so there's that disclaimer. However, usually the timeframes involved with non-competes are 3 is probably the average of time, and whether it's within an employment contract or a purchase agreement, there's 2 things: the time frame, 3 to 5 years, and the geographic scope, which it would cover. And it depends on where you practice. If you are upstate, I would say 25 miles is kind of the outside bounds of the scope. I've seen some 10 to 15 miles as kind of the average scope. So 3 to 5 years, 10 to 15 miles is the geographic scope. If you're in the city, in New York City, I mean, you could talk about blocks. So it really does change. The thing that doesn't change is the time frame involved. But as far as the question about the reasonableness, I think it is 5 years is maybe pushing the limits a little bit. Everything is negotiable, so it all depends on your situation at the practice. The other thing I would think about too is, since it's a standalone document and it wasn't part of the original contract, there's got to be a give and a take. Why are they offering it now? What are you giving? You're giving up something. What are you getting in return for having to sign that new agreement? Is it an extra years on the contracts, additional compensation? So there's things to think about as you're going in there. But to your main points, the time frame's a little bit on the higher side. I would think about the geographic scope that's involved. So be cognizant of those two factors. And you know, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to assist if that didn't answer it fully.
Don't sign it until an attorney looks at it.
Yeah, 100%. Never sign anything. Have it fully vetted. Take a look at it. Don't sign the first thing you've ever given. It is a negotiation for sure. That's a good point.
I learned from my.
Yeah, I'd like to add just a little bit to that, because I always get the question, how do I talk to the owner dentist about that particular non-compete clause? And my suggestion is ask the owner how far the patients currently travel to get to the office. So if the owner says, yeah, most of my patients are within a mile, then you know, you may be able to negotiate that non-compete down to maybe a 5 to 7. And you certainly wouldn't want to go 25 if all of the patients or most of the patients are only traveling a mile to the practice. So think about it in those terms. And also when you sign one of those non-competes, don't count on being able to eventually say that that thing's unreasonable and unenforceable. Don't put yourself in that position. It seems way too many people spend a whole lot of money to litigate a non-compete.
Okay, the other question was to Rob, and I know that you responded in the chat, which I'll share with everyone too, but on average, specifically for pediatric dental offices, how long does it take for a dentist to pay off their loans for the practice they just purchased?
So the average business loan is about 10 years. If it's a startup, sometimes it's a little longer, and we can do terms longer, like 15 years for acquisitions and such. But the average is 10 years, and generally doctors will pay off a loan in advance of that 10-year term maturing. But if the rate is good, your financial advisor or potentially CPA may suggest that you don't pay it off, that you use any additional money to either invest in something that you'll get a better rate of return. Just remember, when you take out a business loan, the loan itself, you're writing off the interest of that loan. It's considered a business expense, so your CPA will be writing it off. So the interest rate you see on a loan, you're actually getting money at a better rate than what you're seeing because you're writing it off. So just keep that in mind. But on average, we see business loans being paid down before they mature around 7 or 8 years, sometimes 9.
Perfect. The next question is, as a Canadian citizen looking to buy a practice in the near future in New York State, would you happen to know if it's possible to get a bank loan? And would I need to be a US citizen or have permanent residency? Oh, Rob, you're just muted. Once do you gotta.
So yeah, if you are not a naturalized citizen of the United States, what we do is we expect for you to have a green card, a potential, I think it's a certain visa that I could get that information to, but I think it's a HB1 visa. And those are the two opportunities that we have for Canadians that are looking to establish. Or you could become obviously a citizen, and then it would allow us to lend to you freely.
Okay, those are the only questions that are currently in the in the chat. We have a couple other ones that I just kind of wanted to ask. How long does it take from beginning to end? So you found a practice, how long does it take to get financed, work out your contracts? Is it, because it isn't likely overnight, but how long would that time frame usually take? Could be.
Well, what we're seeing, I'm sorry, but we're seeing that, probably a minimum of 3 months, but that seems to cut it pretty close. Please jump in, those of you who want to, but I'm thinking 3 to 6 months is reasonable.
Mine took about 8.
Okay.
So I think what I see, if you're to get approval, you could get an approval in 2 weeks. To get all the documentation, lease negotiations usually take on average 2 months. To find a practice or location is the longest amount of time. I mean, you could find a practice the first time you go, connect with brokers or potentially that, but that is the longest scenario. But I think anywhere between, realistically, from 4 to 9 months to potentially a year. So if you're thinking about you want practice ownership by 2022, to be totally honest, you should start today, to get things in place.
Yeah, one of the
Sorry, I
big
meant
things.
after you found your practice.
Oh, after?
after you found the right practice. So absolutely.
Oh, then yeah, I'm sorry, I misheard it. But then yes, I would say 3 to 4 months potentially.
Yeah, one of the big things that is problematic in New York State is if you're going to form a company to actually be a PLLC, a professional limited liability services company, that's taking a lot of time. And so, as everybody said, Rob especially, if you're going to get the ball rolling, you're actually thinking about it. I'm not an accountant, but there may be tax benefits to setting up that company right away, or at least getting the ball rolling, because the Department of Education, I've had 2, we've closed as individuals, which is a little bit of a risk, and I would not advise doing that, only because the Department of State has yet to review the information to set up that PLLC. And those are often taking 4 to 6 months just to have those formation documents certified by the state and get you up and running, because the Department of Education is so understaffed and are reviewing a ton of them. So that's the big thing. Certainly you can close as an individual, and I echo what everybody's saying. If that's not an impediment of setting up the PLLC, you can get attorneys involved and we can negotiate every single line possible. But if you have a good transition broker that has put the wheels in motion with a letter of intent, getting all that negotiation out up front, banks are easy to deal with and they're getting approvals in right away. It's how much negotiation takes, but I would say on average, if the LLC has already been set up, you're probably looking at 3 to 6 months to have everything ready to go.
There's one more question. Apart from this helpful webinar, are there other resources that you would recommend for them to use to learn about specific acquisitions specifically? There is a lot of documents that we're going to send to the group after the webinar this week that'll have starting out in dentistry, the starting out guide, which gives you a lot of information, and then other resources. But if you have other resources that you would recommend, feel free to share that information too. Kendra, do you want to go first? And then we can go if you have anything.
Yeah, the NISTA starting out guide, I looked at it after I purchased and I was like, that's a good point. Wish I would have known that. So it walks you through step by step. And it sounds like ADAPT has excellent resources as well. There's different groups on Facebook, social media that also have great resources. Dental Economics is a great magazine with some great tips. I know, I think James, you are part of Ignite DDS, and
Yep.
They seem to have helpful resources for people just starting out. So there's a lot of things online, more than there was when I started. So it's a little bit easier to find that information now.
I'll add that Dr. Josh Austin from Dental Economics is our speaker at our New Dentist event that is tentatively slated for August. So keep an eye out for that one.
I would suggest everybody just check out our blog at 88 Practice Transitions. We have a ton of great information on that blog, including, a lot of the pitfalls to avoid. And then we've got some great ebooks that just provide overviews of the contracting process and things to watch out for along the way.
Okay, we don't have any other questions and we're heading up to our 8 o'clock here. I don't know if everyone just wants a quick 1-minute parting comment to share with everyone. And then James, if you want to just close out, that would be great. Kendra, do you want to start first, or Dr. Zappia?
So I would say sit with it and envision how you want to live your life and be in your practice. What type of people do you want around you? What type of people do you want to treat? And just go from there and have a vision board and put up on there everything that you want, and eventually it'll happen. And like Dr. Ebert said, just once you decide upon it, just go and get it and you'll be all right. You'll make it. There's some tough times along the way and some tears, but a lot of laughter and great relationships with patients and team members. So good luck, everybody. If anybody needs anything, you can always email us.
Yeah, to add to that, I think the kind of the key point that I would make is with all of these agreements, and I think one of the points made within the question tonight that was posed at the end is reviewing everything, having it checked out. You don't have to sign everything right away. Don't be pressured into something because, as you could tell, it's very difficult to undo those contracts. They're binding. Even though it might be your first year of practice or your 100th year, they expect you to be a sophisticated business owner if you had already signed that contract, or a sophisticated business person if it's an employment contract. So just be wary of that. Always have something looked out, have an extra set of eyes to look out for you, whether it's a mentor in the community, legal advisor, somebody, but certainly don't rush into signing those contracts. There's certainly plenty of time to do that.
I think if I could leave you with any specific advice is, once again, what Greg said was definitely have another set of eyes, look over anything that you're looking to sign your name to. Generally, when we look at data, when you assume practice ownership sooner rather than later, you're usually in a better financial place in your future. I've had doctors come to me and said, I should have done this a lot earlier, but I haven't had the opposite. So usually you're in a better place. If you're ready to pursue it, surround yourself with good people and make sure you vet them out.
I would just say know what you want and then just go for it. Like everybody else is saying, don't compromise your standards, don't compromise your future. And at the same time, roll with the punches. When something doesn't go right, take what you can, learn from it, and just move on to the next step, because this profession has so much to offer. And just enjoy the ride. It can be fun.
All right, thank you everyone. We especially appreciate all of our mentor hosts and speakers coming on today. They provided a lot of great information. Having gone through this all myself as a practice owner, I wish a lot of these resources were available when I did it 3 or 4 years ago. So please take advantage of everything that they offered and suggested. Also wanted to announce our next webinar is on financial planning. That will be April 20th. Learn how to set yourself up for financial success, refinancing student debt, life insurance, and retirement planning. So that all ties into what we just talked to today. You have to have a good, strong financial foundation to set you up for practice ownership, or just to support yourself throughout your career. So we look forward to seeing you all then.